Take a look at this logo for a jam company called Smuckers from a few years ago. Now look at it now. What happened here? This has happened with so many companies over the past few years that I just had to find out. Why are companies stripping all their logos of personality? And why is everyone so angry about it? Turns out, from the company's point of view, we're all just lazy and stupid. That's probably a bit of an oversimplification, but whether we like it or not, it's true. We're subconsciously hardwired to favor things that are easy and quick to understand, to be lazy and kinda stupid. The scientific term for this is cognitive fluency, and this is the principle companies have been using to simplify their logos. The simpler an image or logo, the faster our brains can recognize it, process it, and store it in memory. And to companies, that's exactly what a logo is supposed to be, something you can recognize them by. It doesn't need to look good or anything. In fact, looking good could get in the way, and it's pretty easy to prove. Which one do you remember better? The purple square on the right? Exactly. It sucks, but it works. But if this was the case, wouldn't the most ideal logo just be a solidly colored square? Why aren't companies racing to make their logos look like that then? Minimalism is a bit more complicated than just cognitive fluency. Sure, if everything is white, we can recognize the whiteness faster, but we still have to remember what we're looking at. But we also can't add too many things or else stuff is unrecognizable. So what is there to do? Well, take a look at this. What do you see? You might say, a triangle. But that's wrong. The only shapes that exist here are the black circles and triangles. That big white triangle in the middle doesn't actually exist. This is the law of pregnance, a Gestalt principle that suggests that humans perceive complex or ambiguous ideas in the simplest form possible, essentially shortcutting straight to the end without bothering to process everything or anything at all. And this is one of the biggest things companies use to make their logos look unique under minimalism. Just take a look at the USA Network logo and how the S's existence in the middle is only implied. But if all this is good for us, if our brains like all this minimalistic pregnance design, then why do so many people get angry when the Pringles logo loses its brown wavy hair and instead goes full black and white? Are we the stupid ones then? While logos are meant to be recognizable to us, they also serve another function: emotional connection. It might sound dumb, but emotional design is actually really important in how we deal with brands. It's actually the entire reason brands exist in the first place. Imagine you pull up to a fast food restaurant, but instead of the McDonald's logo, it's a Louis Vuitton logo. And that doesn't feel right, and that's because logos themselves carry weight in them: memories, history, culture, etc. So when companies flatten or simplify logos that have long histories and intricate designs, they're also quite literally killing a part of their company. You see the Warner Brothers logo every single time you watch a movie. You get so used to it, and then they suddenly change the design into a flat blue shape. What is this? I don't have memories of this. I have memories of this. Do you see what I mean? This emotional connection goes hand in hand with a bigger umbrella effect, the mere exposure effect. This effect states that people tend to develop a preference for things merely because they are familiar with them. And if you see a logo over and over and over again, then you'll start to develop a preference for it because it's the only thing you've ever seen. But we might be missing the forest for the trees here, because all of these side effects are because of a bigger culprit: minimalism. Speaking of, thanks so much for all the support on the channel lately. It really means a lot, and I want to give something back to you guys. So do you need a job? That sounded a bit weird. But whether you're a UX designer, app developer, freelancer, or just a curious viewer, I want to get to know you guys, share some UX and UI tips, and maybe even get a gig. So I made a Discord channel for us and want to make this the place to be for front-end professionals. And I'm having talks with people to get some employers in there so you can connect with them too and find some jobs in the future. I'm really excited to get this thing started, so I hope you'll join me. Minimalism outside of corporate logos is pretty popular, actually, in the Western world. From the Bauhaus and Gestalt to now, the less is more mantra is something that UX and UI and web designers do all the time, but no one seems to bat an eye. And that's because people know that websites need to be displayed on anything from ultra-wide monitors to tiny phone screens, so it makes perfect sense. To companies, then, minimalism in logos works the exact same way. Logos that are complex, multi-layered, or heavily detailed don't translate well to small screens or pixel-based environments. Zoom out a bit too much and you get something that's completely unrecognizable. They can lose their clarity and impact when reduced to tiny icons or avatars. In contrast, minimalist logos are versatile and adaptable. They scale well across different mediums, from websites to app icons to physical products. The simplicity of the minimalist designs ensures they maintain their integrity and legibility regardless of size or medium. Moreover, minimalist logos load faster on websites and apps, improving user experience. People are really impatient nowadays. A couple seconds too long on loading a web page and you'll lose half of your potential customers. So in a world where milliseconds count, especially for e-commerce and digital interactions, every aspect of a brand's design needs to be optimized for speed and simplicity. But this doesn't explain why minimalist UX and UI designers seem to be so much more accepted than minimalist logos. So why exactly do we hate one and love the other? The main difference between minimalism in UX and UI design and minimalism in logos is that at the base of it, they're two completely different things. Web design in the West focuses on getting people to the place they want to go, and that's exactly where you'd want minimalism in the first place. Minimalist user interfaces operate off the same principles as minimalist logos, to reduce cognitive load for users. In UX design, this means removing unnecessary features, buttons, or visual clutter to make interfaces more intuitive and straightforward. And it makes perfect sense. When users land on a website or open an app, they shouldn't have to think for 10 seconds about what to do next. They'll just leave the website if that's the case. A clean, minimalist interface often encourages engagement by making tasks feel easy and seamless, which is the entire point of UX and UI design in the first place. In contrast to web design, logos serve a fundamentally different purpose. They are, as we discussed before, symbols of a brand's identity. The key here is that you're not using the brand logo for anything. It's not like you can type the Pepsi logo into a search bar or that the Pepsi logo is the design of the Pepsi homepage. The logo is just there to make a lasting impression. That's it. And unlike websites, which users interact with repeatedly, logos are often encountered in brief moments throughout the day, in often half-second increments. Minimalism in web design then serves as a function. Minimalism in logos, however, seems to serve more of an aesthetic, since the shift from logos with relatively more personality to those with relatively less isn't making it any more functional than it already was before. And since we don't look at logos for more than mere seconds, all the minimalistic sameness of everything just makes everything look really boring. So does this mean that we can only like minimalism for its function then? Minimalism in the functional department is pretty ingenious, but it can also be pretty ingenious in the aesthetic department too if it's done right. I mean, look at that first pregnance example we talked about with the invisible white triangle in the middle. I'd say that actually looks pretty cool. So, is there a way then for brands to embrace a minimalist aesthetic without sacrificing all the stuff we talked about before? The emotional response, history, memories, and all that jazz? Well, some companies have, though it seems to be an easier job for the brands that already had a somewhat minimalist style to begin with. Take Coca-Cola as an example, which has retained its signature script logo, making small updates over the years to keep it modern without losing its classic feel. Similarly, Starbucks simplified its logo by removing the word mark, but kept its iconic siren. The result is a minimalist design that feels distinctly Starbucks because it preserves the core symbol that people associate with the brand. The key to successful minimalist logo design lies in maintaining a brand's essence while removing unnecessary elements. A well-designed minimalist logo should tell a story, evoke emotion, and stand out in a meaningful way. When done right, minimalism doesn't have to feel soulless or generic. It can communicate simplicity, clarity, and identity all at once. It just becomes a bit harder if your original logo was fancy and complicated. The science driving minimalism then, cognitive fluency, the law of prégnance, and emotional design applies to everything just the same, whether it's logos, UX or UI design, or even shoes. It's just an answer to one question. How do you create something simple, efficient, and easy to process without losing the emotional connection that makes it meaningful? But the real challenge comes from recognizing that these principles of design are just principles, and their applications differ on the medium, whether it's a web page or a picture. It just seems like a lot of companies are just blindly following the pack, as if they believe that if it works in one medium, it'll work in another, and which causes more and more companies to switch from logos that have meaning to logos that have no meaning at all.